All right, let's call the meeting to order. Is Carla here?
I am.
Ben is also here. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. So now we're on to, now a draft came up. Okay, okay, anyway, sorry, we're on 2A though, student clubs.
Yes, and so we had a conversation a couple months ago, just talking about our co-curricular stipends. So I wanted to bring some additional information for you that I've gathered. I apologize, I ended up having to send you via email the list of everything because I can't get board docs to cooperate with me. So it had the detail of all the clubs, but on the executive summary, what I have on there is the information that I asked for each of the clubs, where the name of the club, the frequency of meeting, the length of meeting, the number of students signed up, and then the number of average students attending. And then I also asked for what the prep time was. The prep time ranged anywhere from a half hour to 3 hours per week for each of the various clubs. We have 8 clubs that run, and so right now when I'm talking, it's just specifically to Glen Hills. We have 8 clubs that run a full year, one day a week. That's a total of 33 days. And then we have 13 clubs that run for 16 days that are meeting every other week. There are 2 clubs that do meet twice a week. So I am factoring those in. So with the information that we have, as I wanted to take into consideration what we had talked about with our last meeting was the prep time. And because the prep time was so different between a half hour and 3 hours, I just took the average of the 1.5 hours. And so you can see in the scenario 1, I just took the club meeting 1 time a week for a total of 33 days plus 1.5 hours. The prep is a total of 49.5 hours. And I took that times the curriculum rate. So that's where the 14.45.50 came out. And so what I was doing is I was just using the existing data and with the potential new formula to see how it would come out to right now. And then scenario 2, it's the same thing. It was a club meeting every other week, which is 16 days total. And then it was 16 hours plus 1.5 hours prep, total of 24 times the 25. The 25 is our current district rate for curriculum pay. So that was the 600. I did make a note that tying the stipend to attendance wouldn't be equitable. And I can also send that as well. But when the clubs responded about the attendance, there was only 2 clubs that were over 20. The other ones were all below that. Is that making sense so far?
Yeah, I just think the 49, it's fine. It's 49.5 times 25 is, but that doesn't matter. Okay.
So if you scroll down below, I have the proposal for the 23-24, which we can touch on later. But I wanted to suggest that for this year, we move forward with paying the Glen Hills for a full year of $2,000 for the advisors and then $1,500 for the co-advisors, just because the clubs have already begun. And then we did recently start the Parkway Club, and
Wait, real quick.
Oh, sure.
Before we move on to Parkway, so then would that be 1,500 and 750 for the scenario 2? Or like you said, your recommendation is 2,000 for advisors and then 1,500 for co-advisors. What about is that for all scenarios?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for Glen Hills. Yep.
Lindsay, I was asking a question and didn't realize I was muted. I just want to make sure I fully understand what the red line means. 45 per hour current with no prep, 93.75. What's that referring to?
So that's currently what our current rate is, what they're getting per hour. Sorry, I should clarify.
Okay. That. Nope, I get it.
And then the Parkway, we recently rolled out 7 new clubs at Parkway. And so I'm going to, so when Mr. Krager and I had started the conversations regarding the club for Parkway, we had we had said that we wanted to have it be the same rate for Glen Hill. There was some confusion, and I will take full responsibility for that. And so my understanding was I thought the clubs were going to be running, it was 6 classes per trimester, like, and then it was a minimum of 6 times per trimester, and then it would be trimester 2 and 3, so a total of 12. But that's not the case. So there seems to be some, like, there was confusion, and the current people running clubs right now that are in trimester 2 and they're running 6 sessions. When they first like they would say first signed up to do the club, it was with the understanding that they were making 2,000. And again, that was just a miscommunication between Ryan and I, so I take full responsibility for that. However, I can't justify paying 2,000 for the club running for 6 days when we're paying Glen Hill for a full year 2,000. So that's why I'm suggesting that we prorate Parkway. And that would be something that would not go over well. But again, you know, if I were to do 2,000 for each advisor and then 1,500 for every co-advisor, like that's almost 20 grand for a 6-day session of class, which I feel like it wouldn't really be equitable to the Glen Hill staff that are doing it for a full year. So,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Al.
Carla. So the Parkway clubs are just 1 trimester each?
So they're doing 1 trimester 6 sessions, and then in trimester 3 for 6 sessions. And when I had talked to Ryan and I just misunderstood it, not understanding the schedule, I thought it was for the full 12 sessions, but really it's running it for 6. And when I spoke with him, he said it's not guaranteed that they'll run the same session for trimester 3.
And I was just going to share that I had a little part of that, whatever miscommunication, because when I spoke with Ryan and he said that people needed to know, because this was in flux and we hadn't decided yet what they were going to make for clubs, I just said they won't make less than Glen Hills. But in my mind, that meant, if Glen Hills is making 2,000 for a year, then it would be a trimester of that. It wouldn't be, you know what I'm saying? So if that wasn't clear, that's on me too. But if I look at a person at Glen Hills doing 33 sessions for 2,000, there's no way we could do that for 6 sessions at Parkway. So we just want to make sure that it maps out to be about the same amount per session for staff to run a club. And then Lindsay, am I correct in that the 2,000 and the 1,500 is what was originally approved by the board? Okay, so you just want to kind of stay status quo for this year and then look at changes for next year?
And then, and then again, this would just be for co-curricular, non-athletics.
Right.
But I wanted to propose this formula just because it's very clear cut, like the number of days that are meeting, and then like the co-curricular rate. Next year's rate, I actually proposed to increase to $30 rather than the 25, and then 2 hours of prep for each week of a club running, and then 1.5 if it's only running every other week. But I feel like it's a clear way of being able to be transparent about what somebody's getting paid. And then the other piece that, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay, I'll just ask, why would you reduce the prep time for an every other meeting club? Every other week?
I was just thinking because you have that week in between. Like, so they can space it out more. Like, you're not getting ready for one lesson, doing another one.
I was going to say they're planning for less sessions, so they would have less prep time, right? So if you're planning for 16 sessions versus 33, is that what you're saying?
No, but the prep is associated by meeting, right?
Oh,
so the prep time should be the same whether you meet every week or every other week.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's
fine.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the other piece that I wanted to mention, so I've been working with a consultant that specializes in grant funding, specifically with private foundations and just overall. And so we have 2 grants that we've applied at and we're in the pre-approval process. One of them is specifically focused on after-school programs, and it allows you to use things to help offset stipends or anything that's outside of a classroom and instructional. And if that's approved, it's something that we'd be able to have renewed for 5 years. And that was up to 150,000. So I'm hoping to have an update in the January board meeting with some of that funding sources. And So at the bottom of it, I also just indicated what we paid out in co-curricular stipends over the last several years. And so my thought process with, along with aligning what and how we're paying people, that would allow us to have a little bit more funds that we could apply towards the salary scale. In the salary buckets, I should say.
Okay. So when do you think you would bring a final proposal to the board for next year?
Typically it's about in March. So obviously I would have everything finalized with grants and what we would be getting, because we would get that award letter in the spring.
I have a quick question. So let's say, so you're saying, again, I'm not exactly sure because I didn't look at the, what the teacher said, I guess, but you're saying that each meeting is 1 hour.
Mhm.
And then each meeting requires 2 hours of prep.
Yes, that's what I did as a proposal. There's 2 clubs that meet for 2 hours. The drumline at the music one, and then the cheerleading, they meet for 2 hours twice a week.
Yeah,
So they would be a little bit different.
So wouldn't that be 99 times 30
Which part are you looking at? Sorry.
for weekly meetings?
So I did 33, and then I did.
Wouldn't that be 33 times 3?
I just did it by 2 because it's 2 hours.
So we're including the meeting time, right? So that would be 3 total hours.
Well, I
hour.
counted the 1 hour is the 33 hours, and then take that times the prep hours times 2.
So that would be 66 plus 33, right?
No. Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but it should be a total of 99 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
So that'd be about 3,000 then.
Yep.
And that is something I'd like to continue to talk about, because 2 hours of prep for a 1 hour meeting, to me, that's something that I'd like to really think about and take a look at. Because it's typically when you talk about like, special education teachers or things like that, when they're doing ESY, you give them 15 minutes of prep for like a 45-minute or an hour-minute lesson. So saying that you need twice as much prep to me for an hour seems a little bit. So, I mean, it's just something I'd like to continue to look at.
So one of the problems with making this a widget count, right, doing a billable hour model, is that, which, as you know, I don't like going in that direction. I think we should have a stipend that's a fixed amount, because what happens is this model doesn't take into account all the special events. So for instance, chess club, our advisors came to probably put 9 hours in on a weekend. That's not accounted for in this model, right? In April, is just one club example. In April, we're going to have a tournament at our school, and each of our advisors is probably going to put in 20, 30 hours into that by the time they're done, right? This sort of billable hour model of trying to figure out the per hour cost of that doesn't take that into account, right? And the same is true for most clubs, like BSU. They're going to go on field trips and stuff. They're going to take hours. It's just it's really, really hard if you're going to try to use hours as opposed to having like a fixed stipend per club for the year. I just think
I guess I would just be curious as how, if you have suggestions of another way to try to figure out the fixed amount. I mean, because we could definitely do something where, if something is a full day event or something, and say anything outside of the weekly meetings is a certain rate. You know what I mean? That's something that could be, because like you said, there's chess club or just different events where they're happening on the weekend. So we could definitely take that into consideration, but that's not every club.
And some of this is based on feedback from Ben, right, around, but there's planning time and there's this, and not everything's equitable, and how do we break it down by hour? So I don't disagree that it seems cleaner to just do a stipend, but then it's, how do you determine that amount?
Well,
Yeah.
so Ben's point is like, if you follow Lindsay's model, like on scenario 1, 49.5 isn't the right number. It's closer to 80 or 90. And if you look at that with a 25, I mean, I'm not really fast
Right.
with math right now. You know, these numbers have to be adjusted to get a
Mhm.
clean sense of what the
Yeah.
hypothetical hourly rate is.
Right.
So it would be like 2,970 for the 33
Right.
Right.
for scenario 1.
So, yeah, and Carla, I understand what you're saying about the hourly thing, but I don't know, like, I thought about it and I don't know of a better way to like at least approximate how much the stipend should be. So I'm not saying it should be like, you know, what I mean, just like it's $30 an hour, you know, you've worked 27.2 hours but I think it helps us at least ballpark it.
Yeah.
To get in the right range. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lindsay, how would you
Okay,
say?
so what I did when I was a swim coach, but the problem with ballparking, to Carla's point, is that they said, well, you're getting $20 an hour. And I said, well, no, I'm not, because and I calculated all my hours. I have it open right now in an Excel spreadsheet. And I indicated, you know, what my hours were. And I think on here somewhere, I ended up estimating. I was like, okay, fine, I'll give myself an hour of prep a week, even though I was meeting every day, Monday through Saturday. So my prep time was usually more than 1 hour a week because I was writing 3, 4, 5 practices for different, you know, lanes. And so I know, you know, coaching's a little bit different than clubs in that sense.
Yeah.
But
What is that? Oh, it's Lindsay.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm at
Lindsay,
my
I was
swim
gonna-
instructor practice.
I was gonna ask you, because I know you looked into some comparables. I was just gonna ask you, like, our current stipend of $2,000, how that compares to other districts.
but before I sorry, I got distracted. But you know, and so they told me, no, you're making $20 an hour. I was like, well, no, I'm actually making $11 an hour. And so that's where the disparity between like how much you're actually working versus how much we say you're working can like, that's where the gap can occur, right? And then I do see Ms. Perez's hand up, but we'll hold off on that for a little bit, I think. Okay, sorry. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go on.
I think the other thing that was like you said, Ben, in the amount of time that you spent with the coaching is that like that was what was interesting to me when I got the responses about how much prep time people had, because there were some people that it was a half hour, that was all they needed, and then there were some that it was 3 hours. So it's like it's hard because I feel like prep time is almost subjective, right?
Yeah, and it depends what it is. I mean, like, but I know like forensics, they have Saturday meets that last all day, you know.
And that
But
was one
now
that
we
didn't get
don't-
run this year because they didn't have enough participation.
Okay.
Forensics?
Man, that used to, like when
I thought
did
there was
it,
never even an advisor to start. That's what I
Well, we
heard.
had somebody that was there from Nicolet that used to do it, but that we canceled it last year because there wasn't enough participation, and then it was the same boat. And I think she ended up saying that she wasn't going to do it anyway.
yeah, I remember that being like one of the biggest clubs, like back in 05.
It was
So
when I was in high school too.
I guess I just want to reiterate that while I think it is a useful exercise to look at numbers and kind of map out cost and all that, I think in the end, I understand everything you're saying, Ben, I get it. But I also think that we just want teachers to do clubs for passion. And if I was a teacher and I was doing a club, I would not want to be writing down my billable hours. You know what I mean? And trying to justify the money I got. I think the enrichment comes from having a wide assortment of clubs. And I agree with you, Lindsay, that if we look at participation to set a stipend, that's inequitable. And it may well be that a club that would take off with time, you know, just won't take off because it takes time to build interest sometimes, and there's an ebb and flow. So I guess I like this exercise you're going through. obviously, I'm guessing all of us would agree if we could give each teacher, $10,000 per club, it'd be great. We don't have that money, but, if we are going to look at these numbers in front of the board, Lindsay, I would recommend fixing the numbers.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I agree
Get
with
those-
do that.
I think you
Okay.
put in the half hour, but not the full hour. I was looking at it earlier and trying to figure out what this is. So thanks, Ben, for clarifying that.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at it, the numbers
Yeah,
too much, but
so-
when you look at something too much, so thanks.
Because it just felt like, I don't know, but I would argue, Allison, that prep for clubs can actually take a really long time, especially if you have any sort of curriculum and you're just kind of starting from scratch and pulling stuff together. It can take, significant time to put together like a 45-minute program for kids. Forensics would be excruciating to put together those clubs with mock trials or whatever you're doing. So it's just going to depend. Chess is probably just putting out the chess pieces, but
Yeah.
it's just different.
Yeah, and I agree that clubs should be sort of a passion. However, swimming was a passion of mine, but I couldn't keep on doing it for $11 an hour. So like, it's just, we just have to be careful with, making sure that they are fairly compensated. So I think this exercise
agree.
is good. And yeah, so we do have to fix the numbers like you said. Sorry, I just need to summarize what you said. And then I mean, yeah, so I do think we need to put something in there where, because like, okay, so we're gonna come away from this saying, yeah, if you do a weekly meeting, you get paid, $3,000, right? Or
Mhm.
something like that, right? I don't know how much
Yep.
it's gonna be. What
2,790, so I would say, round that up to 3,000,
But, is it possible to also put something in there? Because I know, like, I'm pretty sure robotics meets more than once a week. Forensics, and so it's just like, is there going to be a place in there where it's like the advisor can come and say, hey, listen, based on all of my evidence, is there going to be some flexibility that it's like, yeah, okay, we can pay this club, a little bit.
I would say
I'm
that would
sorry,
be
I was
the
gonna
perk of. I was just gonna say, I think that's kind of the benefit if we go to a model like this. And I understand what you're saying, Carla, is because if you look at it, that's a savings of about 50,000. So if we say in that savings of 50,000, 35,000 of it's going into salaries, but we keep a comfortable fund for 15,000 to cover things like that, we could do that and just say we're going to set aside 35,000 for co-curriculars, and then the rest of it goes into the salary bucket. They'll give you a cushion, so you still do the model the way it is, and that comes out to about 28. Well, it'd be a little bit more, but either way, my point being is that you could definitely have some set aside to cover things. So if you have extra days above and beyond the weekly meeting, that could come out of there. But unless they know that, I guess, ahead of time.
And I was just gonna say, you really have to look at the number of sessions, because you could say this club meets once a week all year, and maybe robotics meets twice a week, but it's only for X amount of weeks. Like, you really have to look at the number of sessions spread out over the year, because it could be, you know what I'm saying? Like one trimester could be for one club versus all year long for another one. So yeah, just lots to think about.
So for example, robotics meets September through February, and then they meet Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah,
But
so you have to
they're
map it out by
still
like
meeting.
days.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's why if you do it by meeting days, like that's why you can have, okay, if you look at the calendar in September to February, how many times are we meeting?
So will you apply this to each separate club then?
Mhm.
Oh, okay. So it's not okay. Okay, that's better, I think.
Because I
then-
have to take each different club schedule
Yeah.
into
Okay, that's
consideration.
better.
Then there's, when you look at prep time, then I'm thinking if you've got a big club with like 3 advisors, are they really all going to show up to every meeting? Are they really each going to do all the prep, right? This is the problem with getting down into the nickel and dime, right? Is there going to be arguments over whether one advisor versus another did more prep time or less prep time? And should a club that only has 1 advisor get more money than a club that has 2 or 3 advisors because they're going to be doing more prep time relative? I mean, I just think it's a
I could obviously adjust the numbers and bring a couple different scenarios like laid out with the current club to the board meeting, if that would help.
Lindsay, could we also bring with us just how, because I'm thinking back to what Carla's saying, because there's lots of can of worms that could possibly open. Just some information around districts that are just doing a stipend and what that stipend is.
Yep, I have that spreadsheet and I can share that at the board meeting, or I can send it to you guys ahead of time if you'd like as well.
Just to say, if the board decided they'd rather not do an hourly thing, like you're saying, Carla, and they'd rather do a stipend to make sure that it's competitive.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is this coming to the next board meeting?
No, you were thinking March, you said, after you have grant information?
Yeah.
Is that what you said, Lindsay?
Yeah, for the 23-24.
Okay.
But
Then-
we
then
do
would-
have to approve the one for this year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So we already approved the 2,000 and the
Oh, okay.
1,500. So
Yeah.
Okay, and that my
the
question,
only
for the
thing that
bi-
I need for Parkway, that's what I need approval on.
but for the bi-monthly, for the bi-monthly, that's 1,000 and 750.
Mhm.
Not for the every week, that's 2,000 and 1,000.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 2,000 and
2001, 1,500. Yeah.
Okay. I guess the last thing is, like, if we're trying to figure out what these stipends should be, to Carla's point, them being stipends, we already sort of went to the advisors, but like, couldn't they make an Excel spreadsheet like me and just rate it at $30 an hour and then just give you a proposal for their club? And then
I can bring it up with Mike and Ryan. I have no idea. Like the advisors, what I've asked them, have had no problem providing information, but a lot of them have said like, oh, we meet during lunch, or we meet like throughout the year during the day, because like yearbook committee. So
Okay.
I guess I would just be curious, like what you're trying to get, like what information you're trying to
Well,
get.
that way it might be easier for us, because like you're saying that each club would have a different stipend essentially.
So what I could do is like some of the clubs that we talked about that have those meetings on the weekends or those other events, I could use those as a scenario of how we would use that calculation if it's not just straight meeting each week.
Okay. I'm just thinking it might, like, wouldn't it be easier just to have them give you a proposal and then review it? Like,
Yeah, but yep.
Okay.
I just don't know if I could ask them if they know what time they're meeting, like for out. I don't know how much they know ahead of time, I guess is my question, but I could do it based off of this year.
Okay.
Like sports, you have a set schedule of when you know you're gonna meet, but like, I don't know when Lalitha signs up for a tournament, if she does it like on a whim, or how far ahead she has to sign up for that. Or if
Right.
it's like, oh, there's an opportunity, let's go and sign up to do that. You know what I mean?
So you guys are envisioning that there would be a separate calculation of a unique stipend for each club? Is that what I'm
No,
understanding?
I think correct me if I'm wrong, I think what Lindsay is saying, that you've got a stipend, but then what you mentioned, if you're spending a whole day at a tournament, that you might get an additional payment for that. Because you were talking about some of those versus like, I just meet every Thursday for 45 minutes versus a club that has a full Saturday tournament, they might have an additional compensation for that.
Like, wouldn't it be easier though okay, so again, I use robotics because that's the one that pops into my head. Wouldn't it be like easier to say, well, on average, there's per year, I don't know, 24 hours spent on Saturdays doing, the club activity. And then that goes into the stipend. And then we don't have to worry about the additional pay.
That's if you're calculating the stipend by hour versus
Right.
just having a set stipend.
For a
And
ball
by
tournament,
club,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Because then what you would be doing is saying that each club is going to have a unique stipend if you're going to follow that model based on the teacher's estimate. And I just think that's a very poor model in terms of creating kind of a hierarchy of clubs and all kinds of strange competitive mindset. And I don't know, I'm personally not a fan of the idea of having differentiated stipends based on the hours teachers say they spend.
So- I could bring, like, obviously clean up the numbers for this one and then bring the proposal to the board and just see if more of the board wants to get more information, or I guess where the rest of the board is thinking with, you know, Carla's mindset or that. I don't know, whichever. I will do whichever information you want me to. I just need to know which one you want me to do, I guess.
Well, I mean, I like the idea of getting more information. I'm not suggesting it's wrong to get more information, but in terms of what you would require of teachers next year, in terms of cataloging hours and all that, I don't know.
I have some ideas that I have some ideas of how we could lay it out. So let me try putting those together and see if that helps get some clarification. Because I think I get what Ben's trying to say. And
Yeah,
I think there's a way to kind of be a happy medium between both.
Should it come back to F&P or would you take it next to the full board for discussion? How does that work?
I could bring it back to F&P because it's for 23, 24.
Because we're not doing that till March.
Yeah.
So I think we can probably do, maybe we should bring it in February.
Okay.
Just for feedback, and then we can vote on it in March or something.
Okay.
But yeah, it would be good to, like, if you could, after this, if you could just kind of give like an outline of like, the robotics stipend could be this, the forensic stipend could be this, that, you know, just like a ballpark sort of thing.
Okay. Yep, no, not a problem. I get what you're saying, and I think I have a clean way of doing that. And I can reach out to the current advisors just to find out what their schedule was for this year to give me information to help build for next year.
And then I think Carla wants a more like uniform thing. So if you, is it possible to also make that proposal too?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm having like a trauma response to the idea of tracking hours, like going back to my lawyer days, I think that's part of why I'm like, oh man, do we really want to make teachers do that? So I don't know if other people would be as bothered by it as I would be. But I'm assuming that budget wise, Lindsay, you're going to have a bucket of money available for stipends, right? And then,
I'd like to have it be a larger bucket if we can get that grant funding.
Yeah, because the bucket will be what it is in the budget, right? And then it's a question of what's available to distribute. If we were a private company, we would say there's this bucket. And if there are 10 clubs, then that bucket's divided by 10. And if there are 20 clubs, that's buckets divided by 20. But I don't think we can do it like that for a public school.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have anything else, I don't think.
I don't think we're helping you, are we? Making it easier.
No, you gave me some clarification.
And are we going with, okay. But and you'll like, what are we doing with prep time? Are we saying 2 hours, or are we saying, like, what are we going to do with that?
Let's
I would like
out
to keep it.
scenarios.
I will include that in the scenarios. Like 1 hour prep time, 2 hour prep time. Don't worry, it'll be multiple scenarios.
Right, okay, cool. Okay, so then I guess Ms. Perez can say, or
Yep, Ms. Perez.
say,
Okay. Hi, as an advisor of a club, there's just a couple things that just concern me. One, it was $2,000 with a minimum amount of meetings that we had to do. So for example, I'm doing Mural Club, but I'm meeting 10 times. But I will say my prep, I think, is a lot greater than maybe somebody else who's doing science experiments or something else like that in a classroom. So I feel like an equal stipend per club is where that should be. Also, to change it in the middle of us already participating in clubs and starting, that doesn't seem very fair.
I would just say we're not changing it in the middle, and I apologize that something was miscommunicated. Because we said that it would be the same amount that the stipend that was approved for Glen Hill's teachers.
Right, but the communication then, I guess, is with a smaller amount of meeting times, and that is changing it in the middle. Because now you're telling me I would have to meet 33 times. I mean, I don't even have 33 times to do it.
No, so we're saying that the 33 times is for a full year and that's $2,000. So then it will just be, we'll take that divided by, and that would be the per meeting rate.
You can see why that's very misleading.
And like I said, I apologize that there was a miscommunication, but there's no way we can say to a Glen Hills teacher, yes, you're getting 2,000 for 33 sessions. And we're also giving 2,000 to somebody that does 6 or 10.
So why don't we propose going forward that there's a smaller amount of minimum sessions that we're doing instead of meeting 33 times? If all clubs meet at least 10 or 12 times, the stipend is the $2,000.
Because if there's a teacher that's meeting every single week of the school year, I wouldn't say that they would make the same amount as a teacher that meets for 6 weeks.
But isn't that your choice to then make your club that long?
I don't think, but then who wouldn't make clubs for the whole year if they could still get 2,000 for just making it for like, I'm gonna meet twice and get
I
$2,000.
mean, because I feel like the idea is to have more clubs, not more money per club. Does that make sense? Because when you're talking about like billable
You
hours,
could do multiple clubs throughout the year, do different ones, and that would still equal out till
right? So
the
then,
rate for
but
the
then,
year.
but then we're waiting 33 weeks to get paid for one $2,000 club.
No, you get paid twice during the year.
You have to do the payment in December and then another payment in the spring.
Oh, yeah,
So this,
I mean, it's
so
We're just being equitable. And like I said, I apologize that there was a miscommunication, but we're being equitable, and the communication was the amount would be the same as teachers at Glen Hills, which is what we're moving forward with.
right. That was the communication maybe amongst each other, but that wasn't the communication that I got as a club advisor.
I didn't
and
communicate
and
anything
like
to advisors.
and I can speak to that, Allison. So, and that, Zena, I will take full responsibility with, because I misunderstood when I was given the proposal information. I was under the understanding that it was the full, like when a club was offered in term 2 and 3. I knew it was a minimum of 6 in term 2 and then a minimum of 6 in term 3, but I didn't realize it was standalone, like that it wasn't, and that I will take full ownership for. But when we started the clubs, and as we all know, we just are rolling out the clubs with Parkway. So obviously this was a very big hiccup, and I apologize for that. But I want to make sure that now when I ask those questions about how we're offering those clubs, now I know to ask the difference of those. And I talked with Mr. Krager, and I apologize for any miscommunication we had. But at the end of the day, when I'm paying out these stipends, I have to be equitable between both schools. And to pay the same amount for 6 days versus, which I didn't know yours was running for 10. My understanding is that everything was running for 6. So again, like this is where like it's helpful to get all the information, because to pay a club that's running for 33 days, same amount as somebody running 6 is not equitable. It's hard to do that. And I realize it's like, could we just do it one time? But that's almost $20,000 to do 2,000 for each advisor for 7 clubs, and then 1,500 for a co-advisor, because each of the clubs have a co-advisor.
And then we'd have to make that up at Glen Hills too. So that's another. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yeah, definitely looking at it in the future, or looking at the amount of clubs that are being offered, I guess, ahead of time, because I mean, the billable hours thing, that does make it more competitive. And for somebody who participated as like a track coach last year, you know what I mean? Like I was there till 7, 8 o'clock because we're at a track meet, we're waiting for kids. I mean, I'm outside freezing. Like that just doesn't seem very fair.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
this doesn't
sports
apply to
is
the athletics.
totally
This doesn't
different.
apply
Yeah.
for athletics. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is just for the extracurricular club, like in like the academic ones, I guess you would say. But this isn't applying to sports, because that's a whole separate beast.
Okay. I mean, as somebody who's running a club right now, and I mean, I was looking at a $2,000 stipend for what I was doing, to now look at like a different amount. That's crazy. There's no other way for me to say it.
I'm sorry that was miscommunicated.
And so then now, am I contracted into running this club that I've started with these kids? Because not to be fair, like not to be funny, but I
There's
don't
no
make
contract, right?
$5 an hour. I don't make it 20, you know what I mean?
It
Lindsay,
sounds
there's
like,
no
But I'm
contract. right?
offering, huh?
it
I just
sounds
said-
like we're not making a change for this year. But
So
for
I'm
next
running, so I'm running my 8 classes at my $2,000 stipend.
is it, or
Oh,
what's
no.
this year?
So Ben, the 2,000 and the 2,000 and the 1,500 for Glen Hill, because they're running it all year, a part of the year. Parkway was new, and so when it was communicated to Parkway, and it was communication between me and Parkway, was the understanding that they were going to get 2,000 for running the 6 classes, and then 1,500 for running, like for a co-advisor for 6 classes. And my understanding of how it was set up was for 12. And so now it's 6 classes. So, and I can understand the frustration because people signed up for a club, but unless like the board gives me a directive, like I have a really hard time because I'm going to have 30 angry club members, advisors at Glen Hill that are saying, I want more money if Parkway is running it for less time and getting the same amount.
So what is an advisor like Zena getting instead then? Instead of the 2,000? One
So
third?
I was gonna suggest 750 or well 575 and then 750 would probably be the max.
I have 30 kids painting a mural in a library that we've been planning for a week, still have a week of planning. I planned myself to come in and do countless hours of tracing and other prep work for them to be able to participate in something like that. I mean, and I'll be 100% honest and real with you. I do my own separate art classes and I'm making $75 an hour doing that. So I am kind of doing this out of the kindness of my heart and having the opportunity here for like the students and everything else like that. But I mean, to switch it in the middle of it like that, it's just.
It was also communicated that the conversation about stipends were still going through the committee and the board. Like that was right from the get-go. That was part of the conversation.
So the board still has to vote on Parkway stipends for this year?
If you want it to be different than what we're paying Glen Hill's teachers. I guess that would be the only reason it would have to go to the board if you would want it to be different than what we're paying Glen Hill's teachers.
So then, okay, so I misunderstood.
How many Glen Hills clubs are running 33 sessions at the $2,000? How many clubs are doing that?
I can give you that. Hold on one second.
I don't
It's
know why-
8.
I'm still so confused. So when you say that, the board decided on the same stipends for both schools, right?
Well, the
I don't-
board
we
just
hadn't-
set stipends and just said, here's the stipend for clubs this year. So yeah, I
Okay.
guess that essentially would be district-wide. It just happened to only exist at Glen Hills at the time.
So what's the basis for changing the stipend for Parkway? You've
There
just,
isn't-
so is Zena, so you're just,
No, so what Allison's saying is that the stipends that were approved were for a full year, a half year club. And so we're just taking the amount of days because Parkway days are less and adjusting that in from the 2,000. So it's like prorating it from, does that make sense?
So
yes, I just don't remember our vote. We voted on full year and half year clubs.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was
Okay.
a whole long spreadsheet of everything.
But why doesn't it just make sense to ask us at Parkway to add on more sessions until March?
I was not like part of the conversation, Zena, with the schedule. Like, I don't know why it was only adjusted to offer it like that. Because at Glen Hills, for example, they create a club and it goes throughout the whole year. If Parkway wants to offer a club and have it go throughout the whole year, the rest of the year, that's a completely different story.
But you said the rest of the school year or the rest of the trimester, which is until March.
The rest of the school year.
So then I would have to run a club from now until June, let's say.
Mhm.
And then I would get paid then when, because I'm missing then the December payment. And then I don't get paid until June for that.
Yeah, so that's been standard practice where it's been December payout and June payout. And I would also say like Parkway just started their club. So I think expecting a June or December payment would be a little.
I wasn't expecting a December payment. What I was expecting was for me to run my my club, I was going to do my 10 meetings, my 10 sessions, whatever prep work I'm having, whatever I'm doing my job with my students. And then after my club is complete on my end date, then I'm getting paid. I mean, to hold that all the way until June for somebody like me, where if I do a mural club, if I do another club, I'm an advisor on, if I do track coaching again, and then I get a stipend for summer academy, that's all one check in June that's getting taxed.
Well, we could look at breaking it out like we do with the sports. But again, like the Parkway Club, they're set up differently than how the Glen Hills are. Because Glen Hills is either half a year or a full year. If Parkway is going to be more like an athletic, where it's going to be almost like seasonal or like quarterly, then it could be like the sports, where it's paid out when the season's done.
I think it was just that Parkway was offered that opportunity in the middle of a school year. So I don't necessarily think that it was Parkway wanting to do or running their clubs different than Glen Hills. It's just when it was rolled out and offered. If this was something that was offered in September with this type of schedule and timeline, I don't think we would all have been looking at it like that. You're offering us something in October, November, until with like a March date in there. Do you understand why that could be even more confusing on our end?
Yep, I think it was, we were trying to have a conversation about offering more clubs at Parkway to have it more involved, and we had to start it at some point. So maybe we would have been better off waiting, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it to hold it in our community. I mean, I guess, yeah, it was, the point was to keep it in Parkway and to keep it and do all that. I mean, but realistically, I can go to Nicolay Rec then and offer these same students that, and then not have it right after school or not, you know what I mean? So it's just.
I would also say that we're letting Parkway teachers run it the last hour of the day. So they're technically doing it within 1 hour of their contract time too.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see a proposal that even, you know, we get paid when the clubs are finished. I don't know. There's a lot of multiple moving parts here that I'm very discouraged right now. I really am. And just disappointed.
So the current policy is a full year is 2,000, half year is 1,000, and then the same thing where it's 1,500 and 750 for the co-sponsor, co-teacher.
Mhm.
That's the current policy. Okay. And then the current policy for pay date is December and June. For clubs,
Yeah.
not sports.
At sports. Sports are paid out when they're completed.
Got it. Okay.
Because, like, for example, basketball done, or like volleyball is done in the fall. So we pay those out when the sport itself is done. But we haven't had to pay out clubs like that because they've either run half or.
So I think this payment issue where, you know, what was promised, you know, for this year, I think that can't really be decided by us. I think that needs to go to the full board. And I think we should put that into our next board meeting so that way we can talk about it. Because I personally don't feel comfortable, you know, like, well, I mean, anyway, we can't make a decision in this meeting anyway. So can we just bring it to the full board?
I agree. Thank you, Ben. That's what I was thinking, is that it's a procedural question I'm not sure about, but if you're going to change the stipend for the Parkway teachers, since the board voted on the existing stipend,
But it's not.
it's going to be a different
changing.
number. I understand, but if it's going to be a different number, then either the 2K 1K or the 1K 750, there's not, I don't know what the basis is for doing that other than taking it back to the board. But if it's being decided after the fact with clubs already going, again, I don't know how that works.
Yeah, and if you could just, is there a way you can like type up what like happened or something?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so I think that's it for 2A then. So we're not going to vote on anything, I don't think. Okay, so then let's move on to 2B.
I'm gonna switch over to my phone because I have my kid here and I want to get him home. So, but I'll still be on my phone.
All right, so to be, just throwing this out there for feedback, I'm also obviously gonna, ask the full board for feedback, but I thought it was good to bring to F&P. Met with district office team, got their feedback, and then it's on a leadership team agenda for the entire leadership team, the second weekend, or when we get back from break, to get their feedback as well. So getting lots and lots of feedback. This is on the draft staff survey, and then you guys know, we also talked as a board about potentially, as we work through my process, potentially adding questions to this survey, as a side note. So I just wanted to share it with you guys. I can throw it up here.
I just saw it as well. I think it was attached a little late to the
It
agenda.
was attached a little late, so I apologize for that. And I'll probably put it in the update on Friday too, just so the whole board can get eyes on it too and offer any feedback. So basically this is the second draft, because when Perry sent it to me, I went through it, and Jenica, Kelly, and Lindsay went through it, and we had some initial feedback for him. So he has made some adjustments already, and then I'll be looking for any feedback from the board and then from the rest of the leadership team. So beginning just breaks it down. So this is for all district staff will take this survey. So just, what's your role? Which building do you work in? How long have you worked here? So some of those general demographic type questions. Number 4, I thought was really interesting. He said it's something they've been adding to their surveys this year, just because, as we've talked about, just that current climate around education and being a teacher, and just trying to get a read on that general feeling about working in public education, looking forward to going to work. Number 6, I took out because if you look farther down, I changed it to be aligned to our what we've talked about this year. So I'm able to see purpose, pride, and passion connected to my work. So we just kind of made that more specific for Glendale-River Hills. Do I have control in my job is number 7. Do I have a healthy work-life balance? Professional development, do they help me grow? Opportunities to learn, generally happy. So I mean, obviously, I'm sorry, I'm just reading these to you, which is kind of ridiculous. And then there's some culture climate pieces around relationships and feeling connected to work, supported and respected by colleagues and supervisors. Knowing what your expectations are for your job.
Real quick, on question
Yeah.
5, or is this the same survey you sent out last year?
No, you guys sent out a survey last year.
Oh, so so it doesn't matter if we take questions out. Okay. Got it.
Well, this is that survey edited now, right?
No, this is a brand new staff engagement survey. You guys sent out something different with Ann last year. So this is a staff engagement survey that's it's bigger than the one you sent last year, because the one you sent last year was just specific questions about me. And this one is a bigger.
Oh, that's right.
And who made this one?
Donovan Group, the same one that did communications, ESSER, and the family survey that we just sent out.
Okay.
Sorry.
My only concern is it, because we don't, I mean, I kind of briefly scanned it, but it's like really long.
I'm going to give, so basically what the plan is we're going to roll this out in January at the January PD day, and we're going to give staff time to do it.
Oh, that's good.
As part of the day, because I do recognize it's long, but having the answers to these and getting strong participation, I think is really important. So we're going to build in some time.
Yeah, if it's on if they don't have to do it during their prep time or whatnot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely agree. So that's the rollout date, is that professional development date. So they'll still have time after that, but then they'll have time during that day.
But they'll have like, not just during their 2-hour prep window, but like you'll give them an hour. So now
I was thinking 30 minutes, but yeah, we'll have time outside of that. Yes. So not during that planning time.
Okay.
And then some of the specific questions around leadership. So do they understand the goals and initiatives? Do they feel their leadership team is transparent? Do we encourage them to make responsible decisions? Do they have access to us? So those are like overarching as a leadership team, and then it gets down to more specific. So my principal is visible, my principal is responsive, and then it just does that for every one of us. Superintendent is visible. Superintendent is willing to listen to our concerns. Teaching and learning, visible, willing to listen to concerns. And that was actually feedback I got from the leadership team. Originally, the survey was just superintendent. And a couple members of the leadership team said, can we add questions for us? Because I want to know how staff feel about my visibility and my responsiveness. So we added, so basically Jenica, Kelly, and Lindsay asked to have that specifically added for them. And then there's some additional questions on me around my decision-making, around the board's decision-making, around, and then the last one is, I know what the district goals and priorities are, and I know what action steps we're taking as a district to reach those goals. So next year at this time, that number 42 would change to something like, are we making progress towards our goals? But since we just set those priorities and goals, we can't really measure the progress yet. So we just want to make sure that we're being clear around what those priorities are and what the action steps are to meet those priorities. So that's really good feedback for us too.
And also
then
to keep it
sorry.
on too.
What'd you say?
It might be good to just keep that question on for next year, because if they don't know them, then
Truth. But maybe then there's an additional one around,
Yeah.
we think we're making progress. Is a good point.
Yeah.
And then just some open-ended, what are the strengths? What are some areas of improvement? How would you describe it to somebody? And then of course, who would you like to recognize? Which we would then use some of those recognitions we would share out to staff. And when he presents, he's actually going to present the family one at our next board meeting. And what he did with the question about recognitions, which was kind of nice, is he said, here's a list of staff that family recognized like more than 5 times or multiple times, which gave us a nice list that we can write some cards and share some things with some of those staff members that they were recognized multiple times by families. We do the same thing here. So I don't expect you to like have a ton of I mean, just looking it over, we have lots of time. We're not giving it out till January. So taking a deeper dive, since I just put that on there today, I apologize. And just shooting me an email with some thoughts or feedback or suggestions would be really helpful.
Because I have some immediate reaction. I can
Sure.
give you them now, or I can email you later. It's up to you.
Either way.
It's up to you, Ben, what you want to do.
oh, if you have feedback, you might as well give it now.
Yeah, I mean, I like,
Do you want me to stop? I'll stop.
well, no, I took some notes, but the one thing I was going to say that I almost lost this thought is that with the like, I love the idea of tagging teachers who got like more than 5 hits on shout outs. What would be really great is to, I don't know, operationalize that in some way. Look at what those teachers are doing that is making families really thrilled with what they're providing, and seeing how to turn that into training opportunities or coaching or mentoring opportunities for other teachers who maybe weren't mentioned, who are in the same arena, right? So if there's an ELA teacher who's getting really fantastic feedback, from families saying what a fantastic job they're doing, then maybe seeing ways that you can use that to help grow other teachers would be really a fantastic way to use that information, which you're probably already thinking about anyway. But, not just that praise out, but also using that to grow and develop. It would be a great way to use some PD time, right? In a future session. Okay, so going back to number 4, I feel good about working in public education is a great question. I wonder if you want to ask the bitter one, right? You're like, not sure you want to hear the answer. I feel good about working in our school district. Right? As a very specific question, which will be an interesting pairing, right? To see if there's a different response rate. That's something we want to know.
So you could move number 11. You could move number 11 to number 5 and then just change the wording of 11.
Yeah, it is like number 11, right? I feel good about working in, putting them right next to each other. I know for me would give me pause, right? If I was in a workplace, I'd be thinking, that's interesting. My profession versus this workplace. It's, it's also not a push pull, but it would give me pause to think about, whether I'm satisfied where I am. Purpose, pride, passion. You mentioned that. that's what you guys always talk about, right? So every staff member is going to know what that's referring to. Yeah, so there's no need to explain that. I noticed, these are just my quick reactions. On number 42, which is a good area of inquiry, I feel like that should be two separate questions. I know what our district goals and priorities are. And a separate question, I know what action steps we're taking as a district, because otherwise you're not getting a
Because you
clean,
don't know which one. Yeah, they may, yep.
your classic compound question, objection.
No, that's. a
Yeah,
good
so
point.
I think you'll get more useful information if you break those down.
Agreed.
Then I need to ruminate on the rest of it, but I'll take a hard look at it and send you whatever additional thoughts I have.
Those are really great first thoughts, thanks. And he's so responsive that I can just shoot those out there and we'll, get those adjusted.
I've got nothing.
Hey,
Move to-
you had a good idea to take number 11, tweak it a little bit, move it after number 4.
You've always got something, Ben.
That's good.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Are you gonna give it out in June as well?
No, I'd like to do it at the same time each year.
Okay.
But then the other piece is after we do our special meeting and you guys take another look at the rubric, then you would take another look at these questions. Do you know what I mean? To see if there's anything additional you'd want to add after kind of looking at that.
Right. We don't want to send out two. Okay. Okay. Anything else?
That's all I got.
I got tacos.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the whack after this.
I got homemade pico de gallo, which is why I was sneezing and coughing when we got on.
Nice.
I messed up Carla's
Thank you.
workout, so don't talk about that, Ben.
I know I missed my swole day. I would have been spending, if not for this meeting. Did you see the man in the red sweatshirt come wandering through here ponderously? That's because he just got beat up for an hour like I would again. And if you were on this end, you would have heard his sad little feet shuffling because he could barely, and you would have seen him using two hands to hold up his cup because his little biceps are trembling so badly.
How do you dice
Hey,
your
Ben, I was going to tell you that you're technically an employee of the district, so you have a free WAC membership.
Oh,
What?
you can have a free WAC membership as long as you go 8 times a month. It's free.
But I don't have health care through you guys.
You just have to
No,
be a
it's
district
not part of
employee.
our healthcare. It's a separate benefit we offer to all our employees. So you just have to tell them you're an employee of the district and you give them your district email and then they'll get you signed up.
No way. Oh my
Yep.
gosh, it's gonna save me a ton of money.
And you thought you wouldn't run for the board for a second term.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Now you're gonna stay.
Yeah, anyway. Okay, anyway, are we done with 2A? B, I mean?
Yep.
All right, visitor participation on any non-agenda items. Okay, so let's adjourn. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, nice job, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
See ya.